Welcome to our March episode of Conversations Over Coffee, and today's topic, Table Talk. Our guest today is Rebecca Chellaney, SNAP-Ed educator with the Health and Nutrition Programs through Mid-Central Research and Outreach Center, a division of the University of Minnesota Extension Office. Rebecca and Vicki are going to talk about introducing healthy food choices and strategies for helping mealtime be enjoyable family time. And I remember when my own children were young, one thing we kept out of the kitchen was a television to try and encourage conversation over mealtime. Let's join Vicki and Rebecca to see what other tips and strategies we can learn about today. Vicki, are you enjoying something with your coffee this morning?
Yes, it's important not just to have my coffee in the morning. I have a half a bagel. I choose to have a half a bagel because if I would eat the entire bagel, and I have a cream cheese veggie mixture on here, I wouldn't have room or the ability to finish off some fruit. So I just make the choice to have a half a bagel, and then I can add my fruit with it. So to start with our questions, I just wanted, first of all, to thank you for coming. And I know that mealtime can be difficult. I can't imagine how it is changed now over during the pandemic and just over the last years. I'm sure there's extra responsibilities, there's more kids at home, more meals, etc. So with that being said, Rebecca, how do you view mealtime for families? Are there some embedded goals beyond simply eating?
Yeah, mealtime is about nourishing our bodies and offers other advantages as well. Sharing meals can be an opportunity to spend quality time with others. And in addition to family bonding and connection, researchers have found that there's an association between frequent shared meals and healthier food patterns in children and adults. So families who eat together are more likely to eat more fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. And then another study found an association between frequent family meals and better mental health in parents. Sharing meals is also an opportunity for parents to model healthy behaviors like mindful eating, manners, and communication skills. So my message to parents is to make shared meals work for your family. If evenings are a hectic time in your house, then maybe supper isn't the meal you share together. Maybe it's breakfast or meals on the weekends. Or perhaps you choose Wednesdays to be the day you share a meal together. The important thing is to prioritize shared meals in a way that makes sense for your family. And then 2 strategies I like to share to support families to make shared meals a reality include weekly menu planning, and then making a grocery list for shopping.
And I would assume that the weekly menu planning would involve the children as well. You could ask for their input. Would that be
Definitely.
correct?
The more ownership each family member has in the process, the better outcomes you'll have.
Rebecca, I love that idea of finding a time that can be shared. It doesn't have to be dinner. It could be breakfast. It could be whenever. But I remember my husband and I would do that as our kids were growing up. And it was such a wonderful time just to catch up on what's going on in all of our worlds. So that's a great time for family to communicate. Rebecca, mealtime I know is stressful, or it can be stressful, despite the advantages you mentioned above. For example, what if my child's a picky or a finicky eater, as we say, and doesn't want to eat vegetables? What if my child doesn't eat enough, or maybe is eating too much? How can parents make that time relaxing and an enjoyable activity for all involved?
I'm glad you brought up those examples. So I like to introduce parents to Ellen Satter. Actually, I love to introduce parents to Ellen Satter. Ellen Satter is a registered dietitian and family therapist, and she has developed models for feeding your family and yourself and validated them through research. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things I like to share with parents is something called the Division of Responsibility, or DOR. The Division of Responsibility encourages you to take leadership with the what, when, and where of feeding, and lets your child determine how much and whether to eat what you provide. And this can be a really new concept for parents, so I'll explain a little more.
That would be helpful.
This model of feeding is applicable to every stage in your child's growing up years, from infancy to the early years of adolescence. The division of responsibility says to feed your baby on demand, letting him or her determine the time and tempo of feeding. And as he develops and becomes more regular in his eating patterns, you gradually take on the responsibility of when and where to feed. And then most children are ready to join in with meals plus snacks routine of family meals by the end of their first year or the beginning of their second year. And so after that, your job is to maintain the structure of family meals and sit down snacks throughout your child's growing up years. And when as a parent, I do my job with feeding, my child will do her job with eating. So the division of responsibility takes the pressure off of the parent to control what and how much your child eats, and allows you to enjoy your food and trust your child to eat the amount of food that is right for their body. And children who are pressured to eat certain amounts and types of food typically get turned off by those foods and actually end up avoiding them when they can.
Sure.
So following the division of responsibility makes mealtime something to look forward to. And then I love to redirect parents to Ellen Setter's website, which offers resources for a variety of topics, including more on the division of responsibility, how to be faithful with family meals and snacks, how to trust your child to eat.
I bet that's the scary one, because you're putting it back onto their, into their hands. And I bet families are feeling a little bit fearful of, are they getting enough? Are they getting it right?
Absolutely. I think it's also a cultural thing that we're raised a certain way, and that's oftentimes how we parent as well. Mm-hmm. And so when we are introduced to a new idea, it can be a little scary, especially when it comes to food, right, which is a big part of our lives. So I agree. So I love to support parents on learning more about this, and if they are seeking out more resources on these topics. And then also other topics that parents are often curious about: preventing and solving feeding problems, or to prevent and address child overweight and obesity, if that's a concern that they have. And then forbidden foods and so much more. And then
forbidden foods. Can you just address that for a second, please?
Absolutely. So forbidden foods are those, there's actually kind of quotations around forbidden. So forbidden foods are those foods that are typically, we might limit our children. Maybe it's candy or pop or sweets, something like that, or chips, where we have tight control sometimes over how much or when our kids are allowed to eat them. So she talks about how to manage forbidden foods, and if having something be a forbidden food, what are the consequences of that, and kind of how to deal with that.
So it might be more managing foods than forbidden, like never have those foods.
Exactly. Yep.
I just wanted clarification on that. Yep. Awesome.
And most of the information is in English. However, there are some resources in Spanish and Vietnamese as well.
Oh, great.
I just want to interject here for a minute. Rebecca, this is such important information. And as a grandparent, I take care of my 18-month-old grandson, on a regular basis. And sometimes his food choices surprise me, but he knows what he likes, what he doesn't like. And so, for example, one day at lunch, we had pizza and salad, and he adamantly asked for the lettuce with his sign language and saying please, and he really wanted the lettuce over the pizza, which completely surprised me, but he knew what he liked and what he didn't like. And other times he often chooses tomatoes over squash or potatoes. If the choices are provided, he's making healthy choices. And I think this really speaks to your point about letting the child determine how much and whether or not to eat what you provide.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love it too, because you're sharing an example of how you are choosing what to provide. You're not saying pizza is a no-no. You're offering all of the options and allowing him to choose for himself. So when parents say, my kids don't eat vegetables, then I ask, are you offering vegetables? They'll say, oh, no, I'm not. So it's such a good reminder that to offer what we would like, the nourishing foods that we would like them to eat, and then let them make their choice.
Becca, with households on the go, there are some quick meal or snacky ideas that I've always had, that I've practiced at my house. Even with my husband, I will peel vegetables, or I will have fruit accessible to grab on the table at all times. I know those are just some of the tips. Do you have other tips or ideas with that grab and go approach that you want to share with us?
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
I would start off by saying that I typically also, like you, try to make fruits and vegetables the snack options, because I see that sometimes at meal times they're avoided. So it's my choice to decide what to offer. So yes, some quick snacks can be sliced fruit and yogurt. Sometimes mixing those together is a nice way to get the dairy and fruit. Sliced vegetables and hummus is quick. Crackers and cheese or granola with milk. I would say these are pretty traditional ideas. So I would encourage anyone to be creative and do you. And then including a fat like dairy or a protein with your snack makes it more filling and satisfying. So that's why I like to say, whether it's celery with peanut butter or the veggies and hummus or fruit and yogurt to have that pairing. And then there are so many recipes online that you can really browse and take your pick of what you would like to try each week. And I would recommend trying 1 or 2 new recipes per week. And I found this is just my experience, but if you do more than that, sometimes it can be overwhelming and tempting to give up. So just starting with 1 or 2 new things or trying new things per week. And then
I love it. Hey, did we talk a little bit about snacking or grabbing on the go? What does Ellen Satter say, and what does Rebecca say about that? Should we limit that, or should there always be snack options available on the table, at reach of children, in the fridge, ready to go? How do you feel about that?
Sure. So Ellen Satter would say, if you noticed earlier, I said sit down snacks.
Right.
And so she's intentional about her words around meals and snacks and structure. You'll hear her say structure and sit down often. And so her theories, what she's learned is that when we provide structure, so that could look like breakfast and then a snack between breakfast and lunch, and then a snack between lunch and supper, and then supper. When a child knows that is the routine and that they can anticipate that, okay, if I didn't eat breakfast or I ate not very much, I'm going to wait a long stretch until lunch. I know that my parent has this structure that I depend on, and I can look forward to snack time being another option to eat something. Now, and she would say providing sit-down snacks is important because it helps a person be mindful of what they're eating. And Ellen Satter also talks a little bit about, like you said, creating an opportunity to eat that's not stressful. So a lot of times when parents allow their kids to kind of come to the table, take a bite, go play, come back, run around and play while eating, whether it's snack or mealtime, it can be stressful for the parent, and it doesn't really allow the child to be mindful of what they're eating and to have some of those opportunities to bond and connect with the other people at the table. And then she also asks us as parents to think about what are we setting up our child, what kind of routine and practices around eating are we teaching them by allowing them to do that. And so she would probably encourage sitting down. And at the same time, from my perspective, I always say there are always going to be exceptions to the rules. So if you're on a family vacation, or you're at somebody's house, or it's a party, you're traveling, exactly. There are always exceptions to the rule. So sometimes we're too hard on ourselves as parents also. And so we have to be able to know that there will be a time and a place when it's okay to deviate from our regular routine.
Well, thank you for that clarification as well. And I love everything that you have said just about encouraging kids to learn some self-regulation. All of this is really leading to self-regulation. And so they will know themselves and know their bodies. I love that.
Yes.
So Rebecca, you've given us some really good information. Do you have some final words for us?
Sure. So I would just say parenting is challenging, and every day is a new day and a new opportunity to practice, whether that's communicating and just teaching our children. And specifically when it comes to feeding kids, just remember the division of responsibility as a starting place. So our job as parents is to decide what to offer and when to offer. So think about that structure and what kind of foods you are wanting to allow or give your children. And then your child's job is to decide if they want to eat at all and how much. So if they decide to eat, how much they want to eat, which can be scary. It may take a long time for you to see the fruits of your labor. So it can take months or even years to see your child independently choosing foods that are nourishing and that they find joy in. But don't give up. And also remember that as parents, we are role models for our children. And by practicing what we preach, our children are more likely to follow what we say and do.
Great point. Well, thank you. It sounds like the table can actually be a happy place for families. I appreciate all your input. Nancy.
Yes, Rebecca, this has been such an informative conversation, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and all of the great online resources. And I will be posting those on our Facebook page as well for people. And if they have any additional questions, can they contact you somehow?
Yes, I'm happy to take questions. If people want to reach out to me by email or phone, that would be great.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us today for Conversations Over Coffee with Rebecca Chellaney. And next month, we will be meeting the new children's librarian at the Willmar Public Library. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.